and welcome to Non-Ec Nonsense, a show where the host's opinions are just like my EMC card. Useless. I am Cat Gold.
I am Michael Matadomini. We're hopping straight into it today. We have a wonderful guest. If you've done a production of 42nd Street anywhere, he's probably been your Julian Marsh. Cat, take it away.
The lovely, the incredible, the talented Patrick Ryan Sullivan.
Woo. Thank you.
Thank,
Thank you.
So
thank you.
happy to get you on.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh my God.
So, you two, how was the last month and change? Because you just closed the production of 42nd.
Warm.
Yeah, it was warm in Rhode Island. You wouldn't imagine that. But I got to tell you, Rhode Island is gorgeous.
Hmm.
I thought it was stunning up there. Oh, but you're from there, aren't you, Kat? So it's not.
I'm glad you like it. Maybe it's because I'm here all the time that I'm like, oh, this state.
Oh,
Ugh.
I loved it. I loved everything about it. I even looked for property the last day I was there.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
Wow. A lasting impression right there.
yeah, it was
I'm
great.
talking about. Speaking of lasting impressions, when we did 42nd Street, I still remember to this day, and it's still rings true. You have, and I don't, you're probably not going to remember, but you have the best impression of me that I've heard from anyone. Like we were sitting at this cast party, and we're sitting across the table, and like the night's dying down, and I thought I heard like someone like playing a recording of me, and I was like, "Hello," right? And I turned around, and you're just sitting at the table laughing at me, and I'm like, "What happened?" And you speak as me, and I had this like out of body surreal experience, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like I was like, "Sully's a robot." Like I was like, "How is he
Hysterical.
crazy?"
I do
Crazy
remember
thing.
that. Believe it or not. I mean, it was a long party, but yes, I do remember that.
Oh, it was.
Oh my
It was a
goodness.
long party. That was a great memory. Great show. All good.
That was a good show. And if you give me to the end of this podcast, I might do you again. But I need to rehear it going.
Just clip it at the part when he said he'd do me again.
Right. Just
Oh
not.
my.
Sorry. Is it hot in here? It's hot in Rhode Island.
Oh my.
Shit.
Oh
Kidding.
my. Michael, I swear
I'm
to
sorry.
God. Anyway,
Sully's the best. I'm sorry.
no, yes, he is the best. Sully's the best. Michael's the worst. Anyway,
Yep.
let's go
Nailed it.
into it. So Sully, tell us, how did you get into theater? Like, what was your intro into theater?
Oh, that's a interesting question. You know what? I've always kind of performed, and
Hmm.
I lived on an island when I was growing up. My dad was military, and I remember wearing his blue velvet robe and played one of the wise men in the Christmas story when I was, 6 or 7. But the first show I ever did was the Fantastics. And
Uh,
and again, and it's odd because you're going to go, what, would you play Matt when you were 16? No, I played Henry because I'm a character actor.
it's all three of us. There you go.
I was scared to sing. They're like, would you play Matt? I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I will play Henry. And oddly enough, in this production, Billy Zane played Matt when we were 16.
Wow,
Yeah.
Holy.
that's
Yeah. And it
wild.
just kind of hooked me. I never thought I was going to continue with
Hmm.
it, but I've always loved performing and I've always loved doing it. So it kind of pulled me in.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I started relative. My mom forced me to, back in elementary school. She's like, "Hey, school play. I hear you singing in the shower." And I was like, like, I don't know, because I was a band kid at the time. I played trumpet, got my wedgies and fleshies, all that, the whole 9 yards. So getting
It's
into
hot in here. It's warm in here, isn't it? Oh, you're
right,
talking
yeah,
about
right.
trumpet.
But I started just with that, and thank God my mom forced me to do theater there, and it wasn't the best environment because it was a Christian school, and instead of doing sports and doing theater, you can guess how that went. But getting into high school, I was like dead set. I was like, I think this is what I want to do, and you take breaks as a human being and you do your own thing. But I'm glad I made it back. and when I met you, I think it was the start of my second year professionally doing it.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and it was my first time tapping in a show in 7 years. So coming back and doing that show was definitely not fun, but it was
Yeah,
a great
you were
learning
amazing, though. You were
experience.
really good in that show.
Yeah, from the back.
I remember telling you that during the show.
I appreciate it. Clip that right there too. But yeah, no, it's a journey, but I think a necessary one that you need to take in order as a performer to mature, and to be able to understand scene work better, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, my parents tried to talk me out of doing it. Not my mom. My mom always loved what I did, but my dad was like, "No, sir, what are you doing?"
What did
Uh,
he end up wanting you to do? Was there like an idea for him?
oh, my dad was, he didn't get a high school degree. He would hate that I'm saying that right now, but ended up becoming on the board of directors of McDonnell Douglas. So he was like, "You need to do better than me. Why are you trying to do this?" And he always sang. I mean, my grandparents were Pentecostal, and there was always music in the house, and my dad was always singing. He played the piano, played the guitar, all of that was there. But it was like, that's for fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we try to do for a living.
Got it.
You know,
Got it.
it
Yeah.
took it took a couple of interesting things that happened, and he came along with it.
Yeah, no,
But an hour,
I
we can get to that.
no, that's interesting. I kind of had a similar experience. My dad is a musician. He was a musician. He stopped playing like by the time I came around. But my family very much did not want me to go into theater. They were like, absolutely not. Because I was at that time when I was in middle school, high school, making that decision like for colleges and stuff. I was in a med program. I was learning how to be a doctor,
Wow.
and like I was getting ready to like do internships at hospitals and stuff, and then I was like, I think I my heart's not in it. I really love acting. And the whole family was like, absolutely the fuck not. No, 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 no. So like it took until probably towards the end of college for everyone to kind of get on board.
Yeah, and it speaks with my brother too, because both of my parents, luckily they support me fully, which is like really awesome. But my brother was headed down like a different path. He's the best basketball player I've ever seen in person. Like he's incredible. And I don't even play him in the driveway anymore. I'm like, no, not happening. You'll smoke me and then I'll hurt myself and it won't be good. But he's gotten offers from like, big schools to go play basketball. And he was, the point guard on the varsity team and this whole deal. He's like Troy Bolton. Like he was Pippen in Pippen and then the starting point guard for the basketball team at school. And it was so funny because my dad and I were sitting out in the audience watching him perform one night, and he just leans over to me because my dad was the coach, and he goes, "What happened to my point guard?" And I was just like, oh, "Sorry, man." But now my brother's pursuing musical theater in college, and he's doing the thing. So it's all
And,
good. It
and
comes around.
funny enough, your brother is going to school under Michael Jablonski, who's the director of Sound of Music at Theater by the Sea this summer. So like
Mm-hmm.
he's the head of the department there. So I find it so
All
the
connect.
theater world is it's like a tiny little circle.
Very
I had
funny.
a football coach in high school, and I played at Titusville, which you guys, it would mean nothing to the Floridians here now, but we won state 2 years in a row, and we were a serious football team, and I was a captain of the football team. And one of my coaches came and saw me do a play. It wasn't a musical, a play, and I couldn't even tell you what it was. I don't remember what the play was, but he came and saw it when he was done. He said, "I've seen you do crazy things on the field. I played both ways, was the kicker. The only team that I wasn't on was the punt team. So I was out there for 58 minutes a game." He said, "I've
Mm-hmm.
seen you do amazing things on a football field." He goes, "But that is the best thing you've ever done. Stick with that."
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was very cool. So I got a football scholarship to go to college. And when I was interviewing for the scholarship, the coach's name was Sam Robinson, University of Southwestern Louisiana Raging Cajuns. And he said, "What are you going to major in?" And this is before the offer was made. And I said, music ed. And he goes, "Can I just offer you the scholarship now?" And I was like, "Why? Why? I didn't expect that response." He said, "If you've got the discipline to be a good musician, you've got the discipline to be a good athlete." Not
That
a lot of people in athletics see that, but this guy,
That's incredible.
yeah,
No, dedication to it. Yeah,
it's
absolutely. You put that instrument down for more than 2 months, you're done. Like, relearn it. So,
yeah, and that instrument,
yeah.
not just us as actors and us as singers, us as trumpet players. You
Mhm.
put that instrument down.
Did you play trumpet?
I did not. I was talking about you when you mentioned
Oh,
that, but I was saying any instrument that we have, including our own bodies as an instrument,
yeah.
you let it go and then you got to find it again.
Yep.
true, true. I'm worried. I've been off for 2 weeks and I'm going to New York in like a day. I'm like, oh, jeez, gotta get back into it. Okay,
I
but
start up again tomorrow. I'm enjoying this last like 6 hours of freedom. It's
and
good.
you're doing a show right now, Sully. Tell us about the show.
Yes.
It's called the Burnt Part Boys, which I've done one other time. I did it in free fall, and it was in my top 5 musicals I've ever done in my life. It was the experience was lightning. It was really incredible, and Eric Davis directing it. It's he was Eric and his. It was just amazing. Um, so they're doing it up here in North Carolina, and they wanted me to come back and do the role that I was doing. The premise of the show is a bunch of miners die in a mining accident in the 50s, maybe early 60s, and then their sons. One of the sons never really knew the dad, so all of his father figure was watching the Alamo. So I come back as all the characters of the Alamo to help guide him along this path he's going on. And the other 2 sons, they've opened the mine back up, and they want to hire the oldest son to come back as a foreman. And the youngest son's like, "You're going to die just like dad did." And he's like, "But it's my only path." So the youngest son goes back to the place where the fathers died and wants to blow it up so they can't open the mine back up again. So it's this whole journey of watching this young kid trying to blow up this mine, the father's constantly helping them get there, and then the older brother trying to stop him.
Sounds so interesting. I wish I could see it.
Yeah, it's a really, and it's all bluegrass too.
Uh,
Mm, 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 mm.
Yeah, very,
Love
very cool show. But we did 2 days of rehearsals, music rehearsals. Day 3 was the hurricane,
Mm.
and we haven't been out back for 5 days.
Wow.
when do you guys
So
open?
we're supposed to open next Friday. I think they're going to push that off a week. So I think we
Okay.
may only run it a week. Uh, yeah, but I mean, literally just got my lights back today, and they're still struggling in Highlands where the theater's at. So we're
Yeah.
just waiting to see when we can start rehearsing again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That is craziness.
No,
Yeah.
all
Uh,
that stuff really takes, you take it for granted, especially as a Floridian living down here all my life. Like I've had maybe like 2 bad hurricanes. This time around, I got lucky enough where it was just rain. It wasn't anything crazy, but it really sets in when you look at social media once it's all done and just seeing like what it did to someone who was on the path, and it really makes you sit back and think. So I'm glad you're doing okay.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm excited to see all the lovely photos from that productions. And if you get videos, hand them over,
Okay.
because I love I love that style of music. But yeah, no, that's it's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, it's a really cool piece. And then to think about, I mean, talking about Florida, that Paso Grill is a place that I would go to all the time, and it's not really there anymore. You know,
mm,
and that's
Mhm.
been kind of happening. One of the favorite restaurants there called the Seahorse is gone.
Mm.
In Paso Grill, but that's all the way up the coast. Everybody's got that story, and then it's so hard to believe that it leveled Asheville and leveled Hendersonville and Chimney Rock and all these beautiful places in North Carolina are are gone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Flat Rock Playhouse, do you know them?
Yeah.
I read yesterday where they were doing a production of The Mountaintop going into a production of Cats with
Yeah.
Ash
Oh, wow.
canceled.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they just can't get it back, and maybe they will for the end of Cats. But I read a thing that said The Mountaintop is not happening, and we're closing our doors until we can get them back open. Just
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. I think I've only had like one experience where back at Broward Stage Store, we had a hurricane and we weren't it was during Saturday Night Fever and we were running for like a couple months and we definitely got shut down, I think, for like 2 weeks, something like that, because it just like flooded the theater and it like messed with all like the lights in the theater, like all the stage lights. But that's to have like a production canceled. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah,
But
I had experience with it with the tropical storm that hit during SpongeBob. I was doing SpongeBob back in June, and it was
mm,
raining terribly going to the theater. But you got to go, performing. So I show up, I get in the dressing room, no one's there, and I'm like, a little weird, but all right, you know. And I get a call from a random number in Milwaukee. I was like, what the hell is this? Right. So I pick it up, getting ready to mess with a scam call. And it's our stage manager, Matthew Karinko. He goes, hey, you at the theater? And I was like, yeah, I'm sitting at my station. What's up? He goes, oh, show's canceled. There's flooding. No one, can get down there. And I was like, I'm here. So I went up to the board. I signed myself in and I left.
oh
I went
my
back home.
funny.
And I'll insert the photo here of just me being the only one signed in that day. It's very funny. He was like, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "Hey, listen, I get it. Whatever. I'll drive back home." But
oh,
good
oh my
times.
goodness, too much. Now, Sully, you're a Broadway man. So tell us what was your Broadway debut?
Titanic.
Oh, such a good show. What was your experience like on that?
Uh, of the show Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, everything, even leading up to it. It's probably worth talking about the audition part of it, getting there too.
Yes, please.
Um, yeah, so the audition, I did it from an open call.
Mhm.
I went to all 3 days of the open call and sang a different song, and then kept going. And I think there were 7 total auditions. And the last one I went to was in the theater, so it was in the Lunfontaine, and it was a dance call. If you could see me shrug my shoulders right now for Titanic, it was a dance call. So we go to this dance call, and there were like 5 of us, maybe 6 of us that were at it. And we get done dancing, and she said, okay, well, there's going to be another audition next week. And I was booked at Flat Rock, going back to that theater, doing Frank and Annie Get Your Gun. And it was about 3 weeks away. And I went up to him after the audition and said, you're going to have to pull me out of it because I'm not going to screw this theater over. If I found out today, I would do the show, but I can't. I'm not going to put these guys in that bind. And I got home and I had a phone call that was to go the next day to go sing for Kevin Stites it was what was the office that did it? Whatever. I was in the office of the casting director, and they brought Jen Peach in to read with me because she was one of the Irish girls.
Mhm.
Um, so I went in, I sang What You Call a Dream, which has got an A flat on top. And I sang Yankee Boy, which has got a G sharp on top. And we start talking after I've done both of those. And Kevin Stites says, okay, you've been out drinking all night long. You've been smoking cigars. You're doing all this. What's your high note? And it's a bit different now, but not much. But I said A flat. And he goes, do you even have one? And I said, well, I've sang 2 of them for you today. And it was like, oh, give me an E flat, A flat. Do the second class passengers. So he had me sing that, and I got to pass. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, you got it. It's just my voice sounds lower than it really is. And I read with Jen Peach, and she was amazing because she in the audition was like, you need to cast this guy right now. This needs to be the dude you cast. A fellow actor stepping up to the plate, which we should do more of. And it's
Yes.
hard in that position to go, well, what are they going to think of me? So then they offered me the show, and I was a standby for Barrett, Bride, and Farrell, and then was a swing for two of the ensemble tracks, two of the guys who drove the boat.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. That's incredible. I
I need
love
to learn
that.
how to grow the testes to be like, it's either tomorrow or never.
Well, and I think, I don't know if you guys know Richard Sabelico, if that name means anything to you.
Hmm.
There were several things that happened in my career within about a 3-month period where everything turned around. And a lot of it had to do with his coaching and saying, you need to own it. You need to own who you are. And you need to not be willing to take every job that comes along. And you need to have integrity. And you need to, if you've promised somebody you're going to do a show for them, don't screw them. Give them a couple of weeks. You can't. And I don't think they would have had, if I would have said, I just booked Titanic,
Yeah.
they would have
Yeah.
probably been good, but they know that I gave them time. I've told them the story. And then that's, paid off also. But Richard was always talking about owning your auditions. And I went to a call for, and you can just tell me if I'm yapping too much.
No, we love the app.
I went to a call at Walnut Street in Philly,
Hmm.
and they were doing Camelot. And I went in and sang If Ever I Would Leave You. And it's a song that Richard and I have worked on. I would not say, I heard you drop the F bomb earlier, so I can get a little.
Oh yeah, this isn't a fully uncensored podcast. You can
Oh,
say
fuck
whatever you
yeah. You
want.
can say fuck.
So I wouldn't say that I masturbate when I sing. What? Where'd you go, Kat? Was
No,
that
I
too
love it.
far?
I love it. No, no, no.
But I do phrase the songs. I'm
Yeah.
I'm acting the song. I'm not just singing it. I'm acting it. And I started singing If Ever I Would Leave You, and I felt good about it. And the director said, and I think it was Joey Patton, if I'm going to drop names, he stopped me and he goes, whoa, 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 wait a minute. What are you doing? This is Lerner and Lowe. You can't sing that song like that. And I went, can I ask you a question? If you hired me, would you not let me sing it like that? He goes, absolutely not. And I went, thank you. I don't want this job. And walked out the door, and remember going out and going, that's the best audition I have ever had.
Yeah.
Of going, no, I don't want to work with you. I'm auditioning you. You're not auditioning me. And I think that type of power, when you're thinking about it as an audition, is, it's palpable. So that came out of Richard. I was doing the Artist Way at the time, which had a lot of that going on. And I was just new going into the audition. I said, if I don't get cast today, I'm going to tell them I'm turning the show down. And then I feel like I owned it. That's my audition. It would be a great audition, and say, thank you so much. And
Yeah.
I believe that I maybe wouldn't have got cast. If we came back the next time and I had a bad day of whatever it was, or, a week later and they had time to think about, and, but
Yeah.
all really had time to think about is this guy's got integrity, and we need to bring him back and put him in front of somebody who counts.
Yeah. There is a magical power I feel in the theater about saying no.
Oh,
And holding like boundaries for yourself, like in this field. I've because it's with this industry, it feels like there's so many actors trying to get the job and what have you, that everyone's like, how can I mold myself into what you want, instead of like, this is what I bring to the table, do you want this? Like, it's like, if you want to join the party kind of thing. Oh,
yeah,
so
I agree completely. As you go in and do, 42nd Street, oddly enough, that audition was a whole nother story. If you want me to tell you that also.
yes, please. Of course, we're gonna go into 42nd Street. That's our
You
common thread.
transitioned yourself
All right.
beautifully. It
All
was
right.
gorgeous.
I was working at, you know what? Then I'm going to back up a little bit and do Beauty and the Beast. Is that all
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Beauty and the Beast call, uh, I went to the final callback, and again, it was a lot of callbacks. And I go to the final callback. It's for Gaston on the Road. I go in, do my thing, nailed it. I could tell the people behind the desk liked it, except Mark Brandon, who I hope he listens to this. But you know, he's a Jay Bender, Mark Brandon. I don't know who you work for anytime now, Mark, but doesn't matter. He was not thrilled. And I talked to some friends the next day and went, I just booked Gaston on the Road. And one of my friends went, you didn't, because I know who booked it. They called him already. And I was like, oh. And Brandon called me in and said, can you come to the office? I want to talk to you. And I was like, sure. I went to this guy's office. He hands me all of the Beast's material and says, I don't think you're funny enough to play Gaston. And they use the phrase, you need to think about coming in the back door with the humor. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm not going to act like I do. But he gives me all the Beast material and said, go home this weekend, learn all of this. I'm going to call you on Monday. He goes, the only thing I think you can do is cover the Beast and Gaston. That's as good as you are. I went, all right. So I went home, learned all this material, pissed off, obviously. And I get a call on Monday that I booked the Gaston on Broadway.
Oh,
And I went in the following week to, and I had, the only other time I've talked to Mark is the 42nd Street audition. So we will get to that. That's where it goes. But I went to my first music rehearsal and they put me in a week because they don't want to have two Gaston salaries happening at the same time. So I had like 5 or 6 days. And luckily I knew it and was ready and knew what was going on. So I asked the music director the first day who was in the audition, I said, can you tell me when you guys knew that you wanted me to play Gaston on Broadway? They said, when you walked out the door, we leaned over to Mark and said, he's our Gaston on Broadway. This guy the next day told me I wasn't good enough to play the role and knew that I was going to be playing it.
what an ass.
So I'm doing private lives in Vero. They're doing the national tour audition for Julian or for the 42nd Street. And that Brandon's casting it again. And I'm like, oh, shit. And my agent said, is this a good role for you? I'm like, no, it's kind of a perfect role for me. He goes, then I will fight to get you an audition. He calls me back and said, Brandon won't let you in the audition. He said he wants to coach you first. So the audition's at 1:00. You're supposed to get there at 12:30. He's going to coach you and then decide whether or not to let you do the audition. So I flew up from Florida, go into this coaching, already know that it's not going well according, because he's like, no, oh my God, do you even know this show? Do you, like, all of that was kind of coming out. And then this beautiful gray-haired man walks in the room and says, hi, Mark, what are you doing? It was Mark Bramble, the guy who wrote it. He goes, I'm coaching him. Could you sit outside, Mr. Bramble, please? He goes, no, why don't you let me coach you? So
Oh my gosh.
Bramble coaches me. He said, do you have a piece of music you want to sing for us? And again, this is whatever, whether this works now or not, it worked for me. Again, I sang What You Call a Dream, which is a baseball song written by Craig Cornelia. That's a very sentimental, beautiful piece of music that I connect with. And when I finished, Bramble was crying, had a tear in his eye, and he said, do you know any up-tempo 30s music? I said, well, I know 42nd Street. You want me to sing that? He goes, oh, yeah. So I sang that, not convinced if I would have sang it first, I would have got cast.
Mm.
He got to see something else, what we were saying earlier. You know, he got to see my heart. And then he goes, oh, and you can sing that also. That's great. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't have happened, you know, and there's a couple of things that I got from it. And you know this, Kat, that I will do 42nd Street because I promised Mark Bramble I would do it.
Yeah.
And I always show up early. And I've never been an early guy, but I'm like, no, I'm going to honor that man who he died about 5 years ago. But I'm like, I will honor you and show up early to everything, just in case there's another me sitting there for some reason that needs to hear something or see something or, you know.
That's incredible.
But that's
Yeah.
stories.
I could listen to you talk all day. That was so entertaining. I was sitting here like that was the best audio book I've ever listened to in my life. When's the book coming out? That's the real question. Let's get that started
All
The
right,
Sully
immediately.
story.
let's write that sucker.
Yeah. So we talked about good auditions. Now, everyone has a stinker. Do you have one where it just sticks out in your mind as you were like, that is the worst thing that has ever happened to me in my life?
Probably a way I didn't own auditions the way that I owned later in my career because I wouldn't have gone to it.
Mm.
So we meet John Doe in DC in the Ford's Theater playing the heavy. And I've been wanting to play Javert my whole life. And I finally get an audition for Javert for Broadway. And I was not in the best vocal health. I tried to sing in the shower before I went there and didn't really even have the E flat without it very muffled, but I went anyway, thinking that they would see something or that maybe I would be able to step to the plate or, you know, whatever any of that is. And I didn't. And I've never been seen for Javert again.
Mm.
You know, and I probably would have just turned it down before. I got
Uh,
the first year in New York. I kept a spreadsheet of auditions, and I went to 126, 127 auditions. I kept a spreadsheet of what I wore, who was in the room, what I sang, all of that, and what the response was. And it really kind of let me realize that I was a heavy. You know, everybody saw me as a heavy. People were saying I was confusing them by singing things like "She Loves Me." You know,
mhm.
I really got a good response to that, but I would always get a good response to Grand Knowing You from the same show, you know, and just being a little nastier.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no. I know for me, the more the more it leans to brassy broad, I have more success, or chaotic person. That is it. So like so many times, like I'll every once in a while, like I'll do plays and like do like dramatic stuff or Shakespearean stuff, and like that's where like I want to do like nothing would please me more than to do like Greek tragedy, but I know in the room I do much better if I do this every single time. I'm like, okay, we know what works. Let's just serve them
And
what they need.
if it's a first time theater,
Mm-hmm.
I know how they're going to see me. I know how they're going to hear me. I know how they're going to see me. Like I said, my voice sounds lower than it is, so I'll give them what they want. And then it's those theaters
Mm-hmm.
that have seen me work that then will go, you know what? Have you ever played Atticus Finch? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and those roles start coming around because they're like, oh, you're not just. I got so many people would say, I would go in after I was doing beauty, and they just so you know, this isn't a cartoon. I'm like, yeah, I know it's not a cartoon. I know that every character is not Gaston. You know, and,
Oh,
but then
You
once
know, we're not going to actually throw you on the real Titanic. This is just a stage musical. Like,
right,
kind of logic, whatever.
yeah, just
I had this. I was trying to find what my type was down here. I now know that I'm like the funny guy, right? You know, I have the vocals for, singing a nice ballad, but I feel more comfortable in the funny guy role. And last season, it was so confusing for me because I was still trying to figure everything out because age wise, I played the entire spectrum. So to start the year, I was a 10-year-old in spelling bee. And then halfway through the year, I was Danny Zuko. And then right, before that, I was Teddy Roosevelt in Newsies. And after that, it was Cinderella's father and Into the Woods and Grimsby and Little Mermaid. So it was like you can go ahead and yeah,
It was just
play
like a
the
60-year
whole.
journey, like in one
I
season.
aged 75 years in 6 months. It was
That's incredible.
gorgeous. Craziness. So finding that out and being like, because this season I have a consistent like idea of where I'm at. So sitting down and looking at last season and then looking at this season, I was like, all right, I think I have it done. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, you're like, even when we worked together, you felt like a utility man. And take that as the highest form of compliment I can give you.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you can do whatever was handed to you. And that's just such a great skill to have. That
Yeah,
you
I mean, you need me to tap,
ability.
great. You need me to rip my pants on zero center, I'll do it. So yeah,
Please,
I appreciate it.
please, please tell me about 42nd Street at LPAC. I did not get to see this. I was out of the state. I wish I was there. So you have to tell me all about it, you guys.
Take it away. I mean, they've heard me complain about my shin splints enough, so I want to hear from you.
Well, I didn't get any shin splints, I can tell you. Um, it was, I think, LPAC may have been 7 or 8 years since I had done Julian, which is wild because I've done it 4 or 5 times now in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience is saying things. I mean, it was still in there, but I mean, you were in rehearsal space. I just jumped in and started doing the show.
Yeah.
But saying things I hadn't said and then being older and thinking about, what was happening. I remember doing that final scene with Shauna the one day, not the speck of dust, the final speech.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you can forget it that quick. And I got really choked up the first day. And how I am as an actor, I want to go through all of those emotions and then I can hone it back to where I want that to go, or kind of, because you never really know where it's going to happen,
Yeah.
kind of where I want it to go. And I was having a really hard time getting a line out. And she went, "Are you okay?"
Oh no! Keep us in it. Keep us in it.
Yes, I'm okay. I'm acting. You know.
Oh my goodness.
Oh no.
Yeah. But what I did love about Michael in that show is we did the 42nd Street that Mark Bramble would have wanted done.
Mm.
For the most part, that's what I loved about what we did in Rhode Island. We did a show that I think Mark would have been proud of. But I think there is a skill to, I remember doing Bus Stop the first time in my life. And the director said the first day, he said, every entrance and exit stays the same. Period. Just don't even, it's all going to be, if it says exit right, exit right. They're all going to stay the same. And then he said, let's take the script. I'm going to take a photograph. Ken K. Do y'all know Ken?
I think so. That sounds familiar to me.
He was at the WIC back when it was the Caldwell and was one of the
yeah.
But he said, I'm going to take a snapshot every 10 pages or so. So he goes, okay, on top of page 28, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here. Top of page 30, you're here, you're here, you're here. Follow all the instructions. He said, let's do a table read. We did a table read. And he goes, okay, let's run it. And we ran the show the first day that we were in there because we all had our scripts in our hands.
Yeah.
But it's just said, he goes, you guys are good actors. I know you're going to be able to figure out how to get from A to B. And if you don't figure it out today, you'll figure it out by the time we open. So
yeah,
and now we can start talking about acting. But I love that about what we did at LPAC, bringing it all the way back around, is we did the show that I'm incredibly comfortable with, and the show that I think Mark Bramble wrote. And I know there are things about let's change it up, let's do, and you can't. I remember our guy on the road playing Billy told Mark one day, he said, I don't want to just be every Billy Lawler that's ever played the role. And Mark said, but you've got to be every Billy Lawler that's played the role, or the show doesn't work. We are archetypes. We are playing archetypes, and you've got to play them. I'm sorry that you want to change it up. Do another show.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%.
But I love that about our production at LPAC was that we did the show that Mark wrote.
Mm-hmm. I did have this one little special moment with you on stage, Act Two, the rehearsal. We had, going across the stage, flipping our heads back and forth. It was me, Sasha, Steven, and someone else, maybe Jacob. And every night you would yell at someone different. And we had bets in the wings before going on. We were like, who's Sully going to yell at today? Right. We were going out.
Yeah.
You never went for me. It looked like you were going for me a couple of times, so I never put money on myself. you always went for like Sasha or Steven. And I like a shark in the water. I was like, oh no, it's me tonight, right? You come on over and you get in my back ear and you're like, faster, Frankie, faster. And I'm like, I'm going, I'm going. And I take my hat and I move my hat back with the choreo and I catch you with the
I
hat.
remember that.
And you looked at me. My character, I was like, I don't think Frankie's coming on for the finale, guys. He just got fired. You guys got to figure out where I'm gonna be. Julian just fired me. It's canon. That's it. I'm done. So, it was something I will never forget on stage. It was so poignant to me. So
No.
fun.
No, that was so fun too. Is that that's what was fun about that show too, is because everybody was in it. For that to have happened, I'm feared that in Rhode Island, depending on who I yelled at, if somebody hit me in the head with a hat, the whole company would have laughed.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
There
no.
was one day in particular that was really bad. It was the day during Dames when the fucking hanger happened.
Yeah.
So I shared a dressing room with our Peggy and our Dorothy. And so I always helped Meryl get into that dress because it's like 20 pounds of beaded, feathered nonsense. So I go to get her into it, and there is the hanger and it's like a really thick industrial metal hanger. Couldn't break through it with wire cutters, kind of thing. Fully wrapped around the feathers. She's trying to get it out, doesn't work. Cat, help me. I'm trying to get her out. This is all mid day. So all the guys are up there with their canes. As we're trying to like rip it out, I fling open the door of the dressing room and scream, "Can we get more jewelry?" I'm like, in that tiny little space backstage, I'm like, the audience definitely heard me, but this is crazy. So they they finally send someone over. The girls are already walking out in their little rainbow dresses. And I'm like trying to, before the wardrobe person came over, I'm like trying to cut it with my tiny cuticle scissors, like at my station, trying to cut into it, can't get through the feathers. They start taking a big pair of shears, can't get through it. And Meryl was like, well, fuck it, and just had to walk straight onto the stage. And this giant hanger, like yay big, is dangling off of her back. And the entire I did, of course, I'm getting changed at that point, so I don't get to see any of this. But she comes out and she has to walk in front of everyone and do the pose. And as she gets to like center, they all just see giant hanger Dave's duh. Chaos ensues.
Yeah.
Oh, it was bad. Like it was like
Tell them
Bad.
what sucked is, one, I didn't know what was going on, but I always think that it's more difficult to be in the ensemble than it is to be a lead, because my moments are defined. Then I can change them up a little bit if I want to, but I know where I've got to be to make the next moment work.
Mhm.
The ensemble, unless you are locked in who you are and what's going on, like you saying, I thought Julian just fired me.
Yeah.
That terror, it would be easy to laugh at that. If you
Yeah.
don't have anything going on and it's like, oh, look at Pat. It's like, no, that's not Pat.
No.
I had a bit of an existential crisis about that. I admit it. I got Mallory and pulled her off, and I said, I need to just ask you some questions. Am I taking myself too serious? Because everybody that was laughing in that moment, I couldn't get to speck of dust where I needed to be if people were laughing.
Yeah.
which was the next moment. So I started going after people on stage, trying to get them to stop laughing, and they would stop, and then I would turn my back and they would start laughing again. And I'm like, if you guys are laughing at me after I've yelled at you, but it was difficult for me because I was asking Mallory, I'm like, am I taking this too serious?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that, and I really felt that.
That show is still the hardest show I have ever done. And I don't think it's going to get topped anytime soon. Getting to the theater 2 hours beforehand to prep costumes and make sure that the bows were there, the jackets were there, all in order. You don't stop. And there's this very funny video of me doing a before and after Act One and what that looked like in that hallway, just because there was clothes sprawled all over the place. We talked to Alex Dow about how she saw my cash and prizes and I saw her cash and prizes multiple times just because of how fast those changes were. But I don't think there was a moment where I was like, I'm performing. It was, for me at least, being a strong mover, it was like life or death every single time I went out there. And, that helps in an audition sense as well, because, at the beginning of the show, you start with that audition, but having that sense of not dread, but like, what's coming and that you got like that feeling in your gut, that helped me stay in character. And, that it's something that I appreciate the show for, because one, it kicked my ass and I got really skinny. But two, it was a genuine appreciation from like the story itself, because you never think about the auditions and how these kids are feeling in the shows, because you're cast in the show. It's an audition in the show. But 42nd Street helped me with Chorus Line. I just finished up Chorus Line, and having that you're still in an audition feeling, something that I'm glad that I could pull from now or whenever I need to.
Yeah, and if you can hear that line that Andy Lee says about, this is still an audition, damn it, and if anybody doesn't want this job, the nearest bread line's around the corner. If you can make all of that truly make sense to you as an actor, mm-hmm. And the truth is it's not that far now. We're not on bread lines, but
yeah, 100%.
It's like, when this show's over, do you have something lined up? I mean, I know you do. I know Kat does. But it's like, live. And it's what I love that Jessica said in her final note in Rhode Island, of saying, you may never do this show ever again. Live these moments, feel them, because it is a love letter to what we do.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's really crazy thinking about that now, because at the time, the show right before 42nd Street, I didn't have anything. And I was I think a week before they started, I was like the last man on board. So again, what do you have lined up? Is it this, or you're going to figure it out? And 42nd Street ended up being that thing, which is really cool.
I had never seen 42nd Street prior to doing it up in Rhode Island. I had never seen it, never read it. I didn't know, because I didn't know the other characters in the show, but I was like, oh, that's a dance. That's not me. Not a dancer, not a chance. But it's such a joy to do that show, especially with like all of our little cast of characters in Rhode Island. Such a fun group. Of course, there was chaos, but in that tiny venue. But I'm really proud of this show that we were able to put up every night,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I watched it. I sat down with Kat, watched the whole thing, got choked up when you took her scarf out at the end. I was like, oh my God, look. I was like, there he is, right? It was very, very impressive, especially the stair tacit in that space. I was just like sitting there like, wow, that was some impressive shit. Very cool.
The staircase of doom. My God. It took up so much space backstage. The stairs were like a foot tall, which is not an issue when you're as tall as Sully. But when you're
I hated every night walking down those stairs.
really,
No, it sucked because I felt like I was going to fall every time. I was like, man, these are
see,
they're not normal size stairs.
no, God, no. I don't know how people didn't eat shit in those tap shoes on them,
Yeah.
especially like the tap heels. How? Literally, because originally I was blocked to after Lullaby, I was supposed to, come down the stairs, go into the wing, grab a suitcase, and do that transition song into the rehearsal. And I got up there when we were lighting it, and I went, no. And they were like, no. And I went, no, no. I tried to go down in my little 3-inch heels, and I was like, I know me, and I weeble wobble anyway. I will bust my ass so hard on this staircase on zero, and that is not happening here
Hey,
8 shows a week.
at least it didn't happen in front of a live audience at the prom. She hates me so.
Tell the story, Michael. It hurts too much to think about.
The audience is so sick of this story. But I did my first professional show. I did it with Kat. That's how we met. And she was Jan. I was Sunny. She's singing "Raining on Prom Night" at the prom, and there was five sets of stairs, and she's singing in the complete darkness, and she has just a spotlight on her. Looks gorgeous. She's singing it, and I look over to character act. I'm like, isn't Jan great? And I look back up, and she's gone. And I was like, where the hell's Kat? Right? And I looked down, and there was a gasp from the audience. I was like, what the hell? Right? And I looked down, and Kat is face down on the floor in that crime scene kind of pose. And I was like, oh my God, she's dead. Like, that was my first thought because she didn't move. And I was like, oh my God. Like, Jan just died at the prom. And then she shot back up and finished the rest of the song like a champ and made it like a bit about how awful prom is. And it was the most priceless piece of I still bring it up with her every time falls or stairs are brought up. So yeah, it's a
I
good
did
bit.
Xanadu earlier this year and skated in it.
Oh no.
And only one time, and I was up on stage at the last button of the number, and we were like dancing, and the last button of the number, I lost control and went straight up, and I stuck it with my feet. And I had my feet up in the skates like this. And then when the music broke, I let my feet come back down. But I don't know if you've ever tried to get up from roller skates.
Difficult.
People over and grab me and pull it. I was like, wait a minute, I'll get up. Whoa, what's this? So funny.
Oh my God. That's I'm not trusted to walk on like level surfaces. Me on wheels, that would that would really be the worst decision on any production side.
No, I had friends that were like, hey, you want to go ice skating? And I was like, that's a bad idea. And they're like, oh, we're all doing it. And I was like, I'll show up and be supportive. And that was my first wrong decision. I showed up, I'm cheering them on. I'm like, yeah, go friends. And they're like, here's your skates. And I was like, no. And they're like, just go around once. And then they said, like, peer pressure really got to me. So I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Right. And they were like hiding the little baby rails from me. I had 5-year-olds passing me, being like, excuse me, can you move? Right? Like all this type of deal. I look like an arthritic giraffe. My knees are buckling. I'm doing whoa, like every 2 seconds. I think it took me 45 minutes to get around the whole ring. It was the worst experience of my life to have the little toddlers pass me, and it was not a good day. So I can't even imagine anything with rollerblades. I can't roller skate, nothing like that. Absolutely not. Tap shoes, that's the most.
Tap shoes. I don't know how I've talked about the stairs at the backstage stairs at Theater by the Sea because it's also a staircase I famously fell down and broke toe the last time I worked there. So like I don't know how y'all survived the staircase of doom. That's why they put me on the deck level because I'm a fall risk. A 30-year-old fall risk.
I'm shocked that Bo wasn't down there.
Oh my God.
Watching him come down those stairs was terrifying.
One day he, so they are finishing 42nd Street pose, and it's supposed to be Bo, me, and our Bert coming in. And me and Rennie are in the wings. And we both go, "Where is Bo?" And we peer through the curtain and we see Bo running down those stairs to make it in time for that entrance. And we
Mm-mm.
were and we were like, "Oh my God, is he going to die? Is he going to die right at the end of 42nd Street? My God." Oh, it was fine. He was fine, but
You had a moment of pause.
that venue is so funny because it's so pretty out to the audience, and then you come backstage, woof,
Yeah, it
woof,
shocked me
woof,
from watching Sound of Music and then realizing there's literally nothing stage right.
nothing, 2 feet.
It looked like people were cruising right on out of there, walking onto the Alps, walking to the
Yeah,
local bar. No,
No, it's
and
a
it
walk, walk, shimmy, shimmy type deal. Is that what it is? Yep.
yes,
Mm.
it was so funny because like you can't really stand like forever like not sideways in the wing.
Yeah.
Like you have to like you can walk through and then you have to turn sideways before you have to like enter through the wing. So it'd be the four of us. It'd be Rennie, me, Glenn, you, just standing like side by side, like shoulder to shoulder, as we're like,
right.
well,
How'd you
here.
fit the dimes in there?
Oh
Did I
my
open up a can of worms?
Oh my God, the dime. Okay, so they would have to preset the dimes during the scene in the Regency Club, and so of course Bo and I have to exit. With the I'll say the last six scores, whatever the fuck. We started to go to the wing, and it probably happened like 10 times. Sometimes they would time it where they could get everything where it needs to be, like quickly, but most of the time I would go through the wings and I would either run into a dime or I'd run into a person setting a dime.
There was
Yeah.
there was this great moment. I'm going to throw Maddie Dunn under the bus. Um, During our 42nd Street, we were trying to get in to We're in the Money. And those wings, you have a fucking football field in those wings, thank
Right.
Christ. So we had enough, space to put those dimes in there. And the dimes weren't the problem that night. So Maddie is trying to get on for We're in the Money. And everyone is scrambling like a bunch of chickens with their head cut off. It was just chaos once it appeared. You stepped off stage, it's a full blown sprint into your costume. And Maddie's looking around, and we had dressers, but they were being used. And Maddie's looking around and looking around and looking around. And I see her, but I'm in costume. So I go to my spot. I'm ready to go. And I hear this ear piercing. And somebody help me from just the wings behind a bunch of dimes, just screaming for help. And it's again another image that I will never forget of just Madeline Dunn screaming for help by a bunch of oversized dimes. And I was just like, here's 42nd Street. This is perfect imagery for it. If I ever get a tattoo, it's just a bunch of dimes and Maddie Dunn screaming behind it.
Just a little blonde wig coming over the top. Like
Ethel can't go wrong. That's where she got it. That is, she still rocks Ethel to this day. Like if someone says, "Hey Ethel," she'll be like, "Yes." It's the funniest thing on the planet.
miracle.
So good.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, 42nd. What a wild experience. I mean, we have to do it again, but this time the three of us in production. Yes, yes.
I will come back when I can play Bert.
Let
That'll
Michael
be.
come back and play Julian, and I can play like Abner.
You know what? Sign me up.
Okay.
Sign me up.
But Michael, are you going to be able to tolerate me ending up with a character other than you in a show?
That's something that's going to be a discovery that we'll need to make there. If if I just randomly drop the show, you'll know why.
But if you play Julian, then Kat can pull what she did on me in the dressing room scene, which is one of the bigger laughs in the whole show, which was an improv moment.
What did you do?
Okay,
Julie,
so like,
what's your line? We'll just do it.
oh, I can't. There's shoot.
Julian, we got to start the show or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. It's Julian. It's 8:40. We've got to begin the show.
They've waited this long, they can wait another minute. She
And it
did
was
that in that doorway and brought the house down and then left Peggy and I sitting there staring at each other.
it was the it was literally because it was the I would, and every time I would do it, I would like, it's not that funny, guys. And like I would close the door and like it was like the one consistent laugh I would get. And I'm like, hello? This is not even part of the script. What is happening?
It's a smart choice. That's what's funny about it. It's a smart
Jess was just like, she came up to me, she was like, I just want you to do something funny. She's like, I don't know if it's like a gesture or something. I just need you to do something funny because it's such a weird little moment. And I was like, okay. And that was the first choice for some reason, was just to mock you.
Because it was such a good tension breaker.
Mm.
Because she's like, I'll do my best. And Julian's like, best? That's not good enough. You got to do better than your best. Damn it. We're going to, Julian, shut up. We've got to do this thing. So, being like, bang, 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 which is what I think the whole audience wants to do. I think
Yeah.
that's why people are laughing. They waited this long. They waited another minute. It's hysterical.
I had this impromptu moment with Ursua during we had a I think it was a pre day before rehearsal. We started work on the opening, and I was huffing it. It was just I was like, wow, I'm back. Here we go, right? And like out of just improv, or not improv, but like genuine like thoughts that should not have been spoken out loud. We were, in a segment of it, and I literally was like, "Can you slow it down for the people in the back, please?" Right? And he stopped. He goes, "Who said that?" And I was like, "I fucked up. Like I fucked up." And he goes, "That was hysterical. Please keep it in that moment there." And I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely meant to do that." So, every time in that show, it's on recording. You can hear me scream it from the back. It's in the Maxi 4 part right there. Me screaming, slow it down for the people in the back. That's not in the script. That's my genuine feelings. And it ended up becoming a line. So,
I, yeah, no, I think the funniest like improv bit that happened. So every night, our Dorothy Brock Merrill, Julian would be like, "Oh, during the boardwalk scene, oh, come collect would just say the lines, and then improvise or whatever it was." And we would go to collect the scripts, and then one day she just started to like not hand me the script. She would just be like trying to talk everywhere and just like wouldn't give me the script. Like one day she like put it up to try to get me to like jump for it, and one day we collect the scripts, and I go over like in a huff over to Oscar at the piano, and because we're fighting about like this scene and how like it doesn't make sense now that they can't like kiss or make any contact, and Sully just looks at me and comes up to the four of us at the piano. This is your fault, but I'm gonna fix it. Oscar, Mac, Bert all went and I'm of course I'm and you walk away, and I'm left looking out to the audience, watching you walk away like a guppy, like, oh,
You told me after that scene, you're like, you're a mean girl. Mean girl out there. I'm like, sorry.
sorry.
It got me so good. And of course, they're like losing it. And like, I'm always like, I don't like to break on stage. I really fight hard to not break. And of course, they're all like crying, laughing around the piano, turning up stage. And I'm like, you fuckers need to get it together because we're still on this stage for another 4 minutes. Oh my God. Too much. Such a fun show, but
It
jeez.
is a very good show. It really is. And I'm very glad I was able to do it with you. It's
Same.
a very special
Bramble
show.
said it's not a funny show, it's clever.
Yes,
Yes.
It always goes, this show is clever. It's not funny.
it
Yeah, no. Uh
really
such
is.
such a blast. I now that I've done it, it has become such a gift. And I can understand how like you and people like Mallory and Rob like in that cast have like gone back to the show like multiple times because it is such a joyful show about the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Such
Yeah.
a fun.
The thing, a wild thing about in New York is I think about this often, and I can't think about it too hard because it'll choke me up during the show. When I did the final number, when I did the final 42nd Street on Broadway, I could hear the traffic on 42nd Street. I wasn't 30 yards from 42nd Street
Mm.
singing that song. And it was so powerful here every night doing it. And then, oddly enough, Lullaby Broadway, the theater was on the corner of Broadway and 42nd Street.
Ugh.
How that show ever closed, how they ever let that theater go, the corner of Broadway and 42nd Street. 42nd Street. Yeah.
It'll come back. It's such a. I think they need to get. I think Broadway will get because they're they're going to be doing that Guys and Dolls thing. It's going to happen. But I think once that happens, I foresee 42nd Street coming back for
Oh, I'm
sure.
sure. Did I tell you what Mark Bramble said about why he revived it?
No.
No.
So it opened in 82, I think, 81, 82, the original company. And I think it closed in 93 or 94, something like that. He told me when they decided to revive it, which was in the early 2000s, he said, Mr. Sullivan is what he liked to call me. He goes, Mr. Sullivan, the reason why I did this show and revived it, he goes, there was 1 week from 1982 to now that I didn't receive a residual check. And he said, and when I didn't receive that residual check, I said, it's time to revive this show.
Oh my
1 week,
God.
1 week.
Uh, the
That is,
residual check. That's insane.
oh my God. That is hysterical. I can't.
People are doing it so much now, that I'm sure those residuals are still flowing in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just such a it's just such a Broadway show.
Mm-hmm.
It's
He,
always going to be around.
he told a really cool story too. He said when there were three producers, David Merrick, two guys from Canada, were producing the show, and people that had produced things with Merrick the whole time. And he said, I need you to go out with me. They opened in DC. And he said, you could tell when the overture started that it was going to be a hit because people hadn't heard this music for so long and people were screaming and the buzz. And he said, you need to come be a really troubled artist with me at dinner tonight. Like, all right. He said, so he sat down at a table with Merrick, the other two producers. And Merrick goes, guys, you've always been good with me. We can all tell this show's going nowhere. And I think they both put in 100,000 a piece, and that was back in the days when you didn't. So there was like $300,000 in the show, and Merrick said, "I will give you your 100,000 back plus 10%. I'm sorry. When the next really good show comes along, I will let you in on it." And took those two guys' money and became Bramble and Merrick became the sole owners of 42nd Street.
Wow.
And those two guys are just kicking themselves right now.
No residuals.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh goodness. But just to wrap up, I just want to say that it was such a joy to be a scene partner with you and to work with you for the 6 weeks that we got to have in Rhode Island and work on this project. It was So fun. So fun.
Yeah, and I'm gonna chime in and thank you for being just this really big dominant force from day one in ours, because I think this whole cast of when we did it was relatively spread out, but you really brought this group together. And these people and these relationships, I still talk to these people to this day, even though the show is now closed almost a year and a half at this point.
Yeah.
You were the starting point of that, because if you didn't come in with this presence of let's do this, we're going to hit the ground running and let's go, then I don't know what would have happened. But like you said, that day one, we all were there. We all saw, this person who understood and who was ready to be the leader of this company. And it was really cool to see. So thank you for that experience as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for letting me play around with you tonight, and how much I've loved being on stage with both of you too. And hopefully we'll be on stage again together some point.
As Abner Dillon and Julian March. Right.
Yeah. I'll be still Maggie.
Huh?
I'll still be Maggie.
Yeah, because you're a great Maggie.
Damn That's right.
Role.
Damn right.
Oh, thank you.
And when you said you didn't know the show, that blew me away, because you're doing it exactly how it's written.
Thank you.
Without having any, you just know how comedy works.
I do love comedy. I love the science of comedy.
And all of Maggie's lines are scientific.
Yeah.
They all have a rhythm. They all have something that they're saying and doing. I mean,
it
nailed it.
Thank you. Thank you. But thank you so much for coming onto our little chaotic podcast. We love you, Sully.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much for your time and for spending it with us on this lovely night. I hope that your service comes back, and I hope that the rest of your rehearsals and your run goes swimmingly. Actually, that's not probably the best way to phrase it.
Too soon, Michael.
God, this is where we get canceled. We were asking when it was going to be. It's right here. Oh God, that's getting edited out. I'm going to repeat that.
No, it's staying in. It's staying in.
But I hope your process goes well. We wish you always but the best. We're excited to see what you do.
Thank you. Likewise. Love you guys. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So this is Michael Matadomini signing off.
This is Kat Gold signing off.
And Patrick Ryan Sullivan signing off.
All right, everyone. We'll see you on Monday. Stay happy. Stay healthy. No COVID.